And nerds, we are going to do a review and breakdown of Dune Prophecy episode 4, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin. So, episode 4's title is Twice Born and is written by Kevin Lau and Suzanne Wrubel, and it's directed by Richard J. Lewis. Spoiler-free logline of episode 4 is as Tula attempts to understand the acolytes' shared dream, Valya sets her plan in motion to redeem House Harkonnen ahead of the Landsraad. So my spoiler-free thoughts about this episode is that the plot thickens. There is a lot of storylines coming to a head in this episode, which I really liked. And I also like the fact that they referred back to the previous episode storyline and the consequences that come from it, and they come really aggressively in this episode. The Harkonnen sisters are definitely on people's hate list right now. It doesn't change in this one. Tula does another unforgivable deed. They also do a lot of machinations to remain in power, but it may be a temporary reprieve depending on what's going to happen with the final 2 episodes. The Emperor looks very weak while his children plot against him, and his wife does what is necessary to maintain power. She definitely has a lot more of the intestinal fortitude, whereas the Emperor is much more pragmatic. The acolytes of the sisterhood start to see the Harkonnen sisters don't have their best interests at heart here, and we get to see that in multiple instances in this episode, which is very juicy. In terms of rating, I would give this a 9 out of 10, which is a movie marathon, because I think that the attention to detail in the storylines help to elevate the show. It makes a lot of sense what they're doing, the choices they're making. It's not out of left field or anything like that. There's still some mystery with the 2 episodes left, specifically revolving around Arrakis, but it's done in a way where it's not the overriding factor to keep my engagement in the show. I think that it's been really consistent throughout, so hopefully it continues in the last 2 episodes. If you like what we have to say about Dune Prophecy and other content we put out there, please like, share, subscribe for more. We really appreciate your support, and thank you so much for all the people that are following on all of our social media platforms. So without further ado, I am going to introduce spoilers. Please be warned about that. We start off with the first scene of Emmeline, which is one of the sisters, and she was in the previous episodes very intent on having Lila go through the agony, and becoming martyr would be a great thing. But because of Lila's death in the previous episodes, it really casts a doubt into what she is thinking about in terms of the sisterhood. And with her having a very haunting dream about her dying. It was very graphic. This is actually the behind scene, but then when you see it in the front, her eyes are gouged out, her throat is slit, and basically she is just very shocked that she's looking at herself. And the camera angle in which it was operating made it feel as though it was her. She's looking at a reflection of herself, and that was really cool setup. But we pretty much know that the person that she was chasing was herself. The other thing that came up in this dream sequence was that the other sisters were also haunted by Emmeline's dream. So it wasn't just her that was being affected. That laid the groundwork for a lot of the things that would happen later on in this episode. Jen was the one that actually stopped Emmeline from committing suicide. It was a temporary reprieve, and we get a lot of those here in this episode too, of temporary reprieves. From the previous episode, we saw that Valya was attempting to rebuild her family roots and trying to install her nephew to be much more of a prominent role. And we get to see that Elliot is trying to plot and get the other houses involved to sow some doubt into the Emperor's maneuverings, and also to put into doubt the investigation as to the murder of the heir that happened. The way that they were going to do it was to elevate House Harkonnen to be the accuser, because the other houses are in a very weak position to tried to question the emperor. So they needed someone that had nothing to lose to really do something about it. Valya is presented as the true sayer of House Harkonnen after many times in which she had denied House Harkonnen the power of a true sayer. These other houses do have a true sayer. That really leads into the machinations that the Sisterhood is trying to do to maintain the power structure at hand. It's very interesting type of maneuverings that you see throughout, but also I think that for Valya's sake, she has been haunted and traumatized by Desmond Hart's encounter, and she's trying desperately to figure out another type of advantage that she will have against him, and we'll see that later on. We see here Desmond Hart. He is still loyal to the Emperor, and he seems as though he is very psychotic, and the Emperor is just saying, you do you, I don't really want to get involved. But we find out later on that the Empress is the one that put it out there that Pruitt was murdered, and to really seed those doubts. And I'm not sure as to why that is the case, because I think that she wanted to elevate Desmond in some ways, but we don't know whether or not she is also involved in some type of overthrow plan, or maybe she is trying to just stand by her husband and make sure that they have power. We don't really know where her loyalties lie, but it does seem that she is trying to keep her house in power. We also see Kieran Atreides' plot, as from the previous episodes, he was leading the rebels to sow doubt into the Emperor. This time they're using machines to go about it. He's still lurking in the background. We also find out that his ancestor had some blood feud with the Harkonnens, but he's not really aware, and he's pretty much a pawn in all this right now, and not really the one that's driving the narrative. The thing is that if he was not an Atreides, he probably wouldn't be in this show, honestly. So maybe in the last 2 episodes he becomes more of a prominent person, but we're not sure as to why he's there. Just to be the swordsman of Princess Yanez. We see here that Valya continues to have self-doubts after her encounter with Desmond, and here she's trying to communicate through a voice message pretty much to Tula to get her to come here by her side. But Theodosia then comes in, and Valya ripped apart the voice message, and it was a mention of special powers. Now, I'm speculating that Theodosia also has the voice, but not really sure as to what type of special gift Valya was alluding to. Tula then uses Spice here to try to find the truth about what happened with the dreams, because the dreams were very powerful, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it here. Sister Silva is definitely more of a critic about what's happening. When they kept going into the trance, Tula tried to keep digging deeper into the minds of the sisters. Silva was the one that tried to put a stop to it, because she was really looking after the welfare of the sisters, while Tula was trying to keep probing. And then at the very end of this, we see that there is the sign of a reckoning that's happening. We get some type of allusion to this later on near the end of the episode as to who this is. At this point, I was thinking that it would have been Desmond Hart, but there's another twist that would happen near the end, which I think would be very fascinating to see who that is. Tula has this loss of control of the situation, and she then later on finds out that they basically woke up out of fear, not because she told them to stop. So she senses that they are losing control of the power, but also they don't know what they're getting into. But Tula does have an ace up in her sleeve with Lila lying in stasis right now. We don't know at this point how it was going to transpire. Then we get to see that Emmeline figures out that Tula and Valya are really Harkonnens, and what they are really doing to the sisterhood is serving their self-interest. And Emmeline is trying to get to the bottom of this, but unfortunately, she go to a tragic ending, and basically fulfilled the prophecy that had happened in the beginning of this episode, unfortunately for her. We go back to the bars. They're trying to enjoy their night before the plot, but then surprised that Princess Yanez is trying to align with them because she has lost confidence. And I didn't have screenshots of this where they were having a meal, most likely breakfast, between the Emperor and Empress, and Desmond Hart was sitting there. Constantine was also sitting there, but Yanez was the one that really questioned, why is Desmond here? Obviously, he's the perpetrator of Pruitt's murder, and he's getting in this prominent position for what purpose? What type of thing is he trying to serve? Just because of blind loyalty, or just because the Emperor is fearing his power? So Yanez is really the one in the position to question all that is happening. Then we get to see the Landsraad, which is the big culminating scene of this episode, where the Emperor is trying to get everyone to order here. And then the Harkonnens, the Atreides, are trying to find some way to disrupt the Landsraad here. But instead, what happens is the princess steals the Harkonnen thunder and the Atreides thunder, and to call out Desmond Hart for his transgressions. Desmond Hart then responds by saying, yes, I am indeed the person that killed Pruitt, and I thought it was a necessary evil. We see in an earlier scene that he brought out all those enforcers to try to arrest the individuals responsible for having machines in the premises of the Imperium. And so he's almost like the attack dog of the Imperium right now, to try to weed out all those individuals that have the machines, but maybe just falsely accusing them, honestly, of having machines, because to sow fear in the council so that he can maybe gain control of the Imperium. He starts using the powers that he had when you saw that he killed Pruitt, but also Kasha in the earlier episode. Then we get a short scene of the Arrakis and the sandworms coming up. We really don't know how Arrakis is getting involved in this episode, in this series. We don't really know if Desmond is trying to draw from the sandworms' power. I'm not sure how that all is connected. He starts to burn all of the houses from the inside. So these are some of the High Council members that is suffering, just like how it was in the earlier episode. But this power that he wields takes a physical toll on him, and we see that later on as well. The Emperor admitting to the fact that he actually wanted that to happen, and to reassure Desmond that he's not going to get in trouble. However, in this scene, Valya was able to get a tactical advantage by taking the blood from Desmond Hart when he put his hand on a railing. So maybe this is the break that she needs to figure out who this guy is, because so far nothing has worked against this guy. Not even the voice. We then get to see Tula was able to revive Lila, but this is the part when I was talking about when the sisters were doing their drawing, they saw that a reckoning was coming. I get the sense that the reckoning is Lila, because she had the eyes that were blue, and it seems as though she was able to pass the agony, but we don't know whether Raquel is the one that's inhabiting her body, or is it still Lila? We don't know yet, and we don't know whether or not the sandworms from Arrakis is controlling her. We're probably going to find the answers to that in the last two episodes. And then finally, we get to go back to the Harkonnen house, and the uncle is definitely in a very poor state of health. For his last dying breath, he's saying to Valya that you had way too much ambition. Griffin was the one that was going to bring our house back to prominence, but you were the one that drove him to his death, and you didn't know what your place. Valya did not let him get his breathing device, and he died. Valya doubles down on her belief that what she's doing is for the benefit of House Harkonnen. You don't know what you're talking about. So there's a lot of that trauma that she felt as a teenager coming back at her uncle and to her family. and also trying to defend Griffin for what he did. At the very end of this episode, there's an encounter with Griffin. We know that he's dead. There's some type of being that's shape-shifting. Again, dropping those breadcrumbs of mystery that hopefully get people to stay engaged in this series. I think that the whole show does a very good job of revealing things, moving the plot along, but also dropping those mysteries along the way. So those are my thoughts about Dune Prophecy Episode 4. We would like to hear what you have to say about this episode. Please comment down below, like, share, subscribe for more content like this, and we will see you in the next video. All right, take care, everybody.